Welcome back. This is Dr. Geetanjali Pareek, and as I have just told you earlier, so today we will be dealing with a brief history of cognitive psychology. So let's get started with it. So till date we have studied about what is cognitive psychology. We had dealt with the domains of cognitive psychology. We have even studied the research or the goals of cognitive psychology and the various research methods which are being used in cognitive psychology. So today we are going to do what is called as the brief history of cognitive psychology, how it actually developed to the current form. That's what we are going to study. The main focus of attention of any cognitive psychology, as you all know, is definitely about mind. Means how the knowledge is represented in your mind. And in this section, there are definitely three major periods during which the development of cognitive psychology took place. So we would be discussing all those 3 years periods. So the first is definitely the early thoughts of thinking. Secondly, during the Renaissance, and thirdly, it would be your modern age, or during the modern times, how the people thought about cognitive psychology changed. So let's start with what is called as early thoughts of cognitive psychology. Mainly during the early time, or you can say so ever since the cognitive psychology came into being, the main focus of attention of the people was that how the knowledge comes to the mind and how it is represented in your mind. So say how it is stored and manipulated and things like that. So that was the keen interest of the people. So it was not only in the modern age, you can say so, it was time immemorial during the early times when the cognitive psychology came into being. So during that time there were two groups of people. One they were called as Empiricists and the other that is called as Nativists. Now the Empiricists believed that the knowledge it came in the form of experience. Whatever experience we had that comes and establishes itself in the form of knowledge. The secondly was the Nativists, and they felt that it is not there, it's already there in your mind. It's already there, you have to just use it. You just know how to use that thing. So if you will study, you will find that mostly the focus of attention of the people during that time was that what's the seed or where this knowledge or the thought processes they are seated. So people like Aristotle, they felt that it is stored in your heart. So whatever the seed of where this was stored is in your heart. But people like Plato, they felt no, it's not there, it's not stored in your heart, it is stored in your brain. So there was that dichotomy regarding this. Renaissance philosophers or the psychologists, they always felt that the knowledge or whatever thought processes, that is not stored in your heart but it's stored in your brain. That was there. But then they felt that whatever knowledge it is either through your physical senses, means to say whatever information that is actually collected through your physical senses or through your divine sources. So they felt that there are two sources of information which you acquire, and that is either through your physical senses or through your divine source. During 18th century, it was certain British empirists or the British psychologists, you can say so, like George Berkeley, David Hume was there, later James Mill, and later his son James Stuart Mill. They proposed that whatever knowledge is, it is in the form of internal representation. And the internal representation is of three types. One is just your direct sensory events, you just experience this thing. Secondly is that whatever, it is something like short-term memory, or they call it as faint copies of the percepts that was stored in the memory. Thirdly, you can say so, transformation of these faint copies in the form of thought. So they felt that these notions, they actually resulted in the form of current research work in the cognitive psychology. During 19th century again, psychologists like Gustav Brenato, Hermann Helmholtz, William Wundt, Muller, and Pulpe, Hermann Ebbinghaus, Galton, Tishner, William James, there were not many, and they actually started to break away from the philosophies of the early times. So these fellows, instead of working on assumptions, they started making their own disciplines and based on the empirical results. So they felt that instead of speculating, it's better to have a discipline its own. And because of this, they were clearly to the representation of knowledge were clearly dichotomous, and they emphasized firstly people like Wundt and Tishner. They felt that the structures of mental representation. These are the structures. Whatever information is there, it is stored in the form of mental structures in your brain. Secondly, was like Renato, etc. They said that it's a process of acts. During that time in America, James, he critically analyzed his new psychology, and he published his book also in 1890, and that was called as Principles of Psychology, according to which he felt that this cognitive psychology, in his view of memory, is in which both structures and the processes they play a part. So it is not completely based on the representation in structures of the mind, and neither it is dependent on X. Now it has both components in it. The idea of the representation of knowledge, it got radical turn during the 20th century when the behaviorism and the Gesalt psychologists they came into being. You will study in detail regarding the behaviorists and the Gesalt theorists. I'll just the nutshell that is the behaviorists felt that whatever learning is there, it is because of the stimulus response mechanism. It is because of that the person learns a situation. And the Gesalt theorists, they conceptualized that internal representation of the whatever knowledge it is to be there for one person to have that information. Because of their experimental studies, the behaviorists, etc., the concept of mental representation of knowledge, it took backseat, and it was there in the latent form till for around 50 years or so, and the people were more interested in behaviorists. And it was in only 1932 when the cognitive revolution again swept away the psychologists with Tolman, and he just published his book Purposive Behavior in Animals and Men. So in that experiment, he actually did an experiment on rats, and he published that in his book. And according to that, it was not only the person's means to say the behavior, the stimulus response, but he also felt that it is also the internal representations. He felt that the rat, he had that, he forms a map of that place in his mind, and because of that he learns this thing that it has to move around like this. So it caused a revolution at that time, and because earlier it was just only that whatever stimulus you had, you persons, and according reward and punishment stories, etc., the person acts like it. They said no, it is not only that, it is also because it forms an internal representation of that knowledge or whatever information it is in his mind, and he had then executed. Similarly, the person called Bartlett, he introduced the concept of schema. Means to say, it was like it is if the person has a more internal representation, the person is able to respond in a much better way or in more meaningful and rich manner than the early psychologists, which felt that it is only the stimulus and response theory. Now we come on to what is called as cognitive psychology as it is in today. So during 1950s, again the interest pattern of the people or the psychologists changed, and this time it was more focused on attention, memory, pattern formation, images, schematic organization of the information, language processing, thinking, and even the consciousness, how the consciousness was. So this was all forming a part of your cognitive psychology. So new genres were coming into being, and new professional groups were formed, and for much more better clarity about these areas. You have to ask what was the reason why these new dynamics came into being, and firstly or the main forces which accounted for the development of new cognitive revolution. So firstly was it the failure of behaviorism. The behavioral theorists, they failed, means to say they were able to explain certain processes or the certain reasons why, but not entirely, because they were not able to explain certain of phenomena like the memory, attention, consciousness, thinking, imagery. But this required much more detailed investigation. Secondly was the emergence of communication theory. Now communication theory means to say it depends upon the experiments in signal detection, how the attention, cybernetics, information theory. Next was your modern linguistics, so new ways. So linguistics was another factor. Because they were modern, means to say they were new ways how the language or the grammatical structures they came into being. Then there were more researchers in the field of memory, means to say. Then we had was this computer science and other technological advances. So especially this was called as a subdivision of computer science is called as artificial intelligence. So it just made one more so to think about what all could be the reasons or how the re-examination, or you can say so postulate of problem solving, memory processing, as well as how one processes language acquisition. So these were there. Then cognitive development is there. Till that time you must have seen one thing during that earlier you were not able to understand certain concepts, but immediately after some time you find it very easy. Okay, it was so easy, then why was I was feeling so difficult? मेरे को पहले क्यों नहीं समझ में आ रहा था? ये तो बहुत easy था. So it is because of the maturation factors. So it was not only means to say earlier we used to say physical development, emotional development, but later on it was found that it is not only these development, but also cognitive development is also important. So because of the this factor was brought about by John Piaget, and he described how the child develops. Means to say the cognitive processes develops from the child to an adolescence. The different this way we will be discussing during cognitive structures. So that was all. So that is how the things changed. And one more thing, if I'm not forgetting, was the association with the neurology. Mostly it is that how the information is stored, etc. For example, I was just talking about Goldman and Bartlett. They say it is there in the form of cognitive representation. And the neuropsychologists or the neurologists, they have found that definitely whatever information is there, it is stored in the form of neurochemical codes. Hope you are able to get an idea about all these things and how they actually came into being. So in the future we will be talking about the key issues in the study of cognitive psychology. If you like it, please like, share and subscribe to my channel and keep listening to me. And if you have any comments, you can